Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be the difference between winning and losing. I've got a pretty short email here from a guy who he wanted to become a starting quarterback for his football team, but he didn't get the position. So obviously he's pretty bummed about it. And I coach a lot of athletes and people that play sports professionally, and every guy deals with this at some level. And this is something that not only applies to sports, but it applies to business. It applies to women you're dating, and it applies to going after anything that you want in life. So before we get into it, I got a quote that I wrote that I'd like to share with you, and it says, "Winners think about and focus their attention on their goals and dreams. They recognize what their current capabilities are in the present moment and seek to plan, strategize, analyze, adapt, and continually take action to improve their skills and situation. Winners know that success is simply a matter of time, not a matter of luck or coincidence. Losers focus on what they don't have not achieved yet, what they're lacking, and simply give up before they've paid the price by taking action and spent the time it takes to succeed." So let's get into the guy's email. He says, "Hey Corey, I got a question. I recently heard that I did not win the starting quarterback job for my football team. I've worked hard to earn it, and I believe I have earned it. To say I'm disappointed is an understatement. But I also believe that having gone through a huge letdown, this is now the time to pursue women, because I don't think any news rejection can be as tough of a blow as I got last week." Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you look at that, because obviously becoming the starting quarterback is obviously very important to you. And as far as men go, masculine energy is about purpose, drive, mission, succeeding, accomplishing, breaking through barriers. And when something like this happens, it's like, anybody that plays sports professionally and they expect to play at the highest level, and then they miss out and they don't get to that kind of level. It's kind of like Michael Jordan. And most people don't realize that when his sophomore year, he got cut from the varsity basketball team. And obviously, he thought he was a pretty damn good player, but obviously the coaches didn't agree. But what one of the coaches did do is he saw that he had a passion, that he definitely had raw talent. And so he said, "I tell you what, if you meet me every day after school and practice on the fundamentals and the things that I teach you, I promise you'll make the team next year." And so it took that coach caring and spending the time, and Michael met him and practiced, did all the things, did all the fundamentals that he was asked to do. And of course the next year he made, his junior year in high school, he made the varsity team. And the rest is pretty much history. But one of the interesting things is that, and I learned this from Tony Robbins. He actually interviewed Michael Jordan, and this is probably 15, 20 years ago, and said, what if you could boil it down to like one simple thing or a couple of simple principles, why is it that you are so ridiculously successful? Why is it that you've won 6 NBA titles and you have all of these records? And he says, it's simple. He says, I have higher standards for myself personally than my coaches, my teammates, my friends, my fans, and my family have for me. I mean, think about that for a second. He demands more out of himself than everybody else in his life demands, because his standard, he sets the bar so high for himself, and that's why he accomplished the things that he accomplished. And all great players are like that. You look at LeBron James, a really great player. He's been the champion, the finals 4 times now. He's won 2 of those times, and he's just completely focused on trying to get a little bit better each day. Even his teammates, Dwayne Wade, same thing. Another one of his teammates is Ray Allen, one of the all-time best three-point shooter in NBA history. Well, he had a coach in college, and I've shared this before, but it's important to talk about it again here, especially with where this guy is at, who wants to become a quarterback. And so this college coach recognized that Ray had a lot of talent. and obviously Ray wanted to eventually make it in the NBA. And there were a lot of good guys that were on the team, and they had a lot of talent, but obviously they didn't have the drive and the passion and the desire, the burning desire, meaning it's like they obviously didn't feel like even though they were great basketball players, they didn't feel like they were put on this earth to be a great basketball player. But Ray Allen had that desire. And the coach said to him, he says, if you want to get to the next level, if you want to be like that special kind of player, then you've got to practice and prepare. You've got to do little things consistently. And one of the success rituals, because part of being successful is having success rituals. It's like going to the gym. It's like eating healthy, getting plenty of sleep. It's like taking action on a daily basis on the things that you need to do. It instilled in him a way that, so like what he does is he doesn't leave the basketball court until he makes 100 3-pointers. Can you imagine? So it's like every time they have a game, he's there 3 or 4 hours before the game starts, just knocking down 3-pointers, just practicing his shot. And where it really came in to play was especially in the finals that just ended a few months ago when they won. There was Game 6. And I was watching, I was just thinking, fuck, these guys are going to fucking lose this game. I couldn't believe it. And then, they got really close, and they started coming back, but, I mean, they were literally seconds away. The guys were bringing all the security tape and stuff around to rope off the court and bringing out the trophy to celebrate with the Spurs, because obviously it looked like the Spurs had the game in the bag. And obviously that kind of motivated some of those players. And Chris Bosh, one of the other key players, ended up stealing the ball, getting the ball, and as he was turning around, Ray Allen went right to the 3-point line, like he's practiced tens of thousands of times already. And it was so beautiful. You can watch it on the internet. It was just threw this shot, and it was just, I watched that shot went in. I was like, holy shit! I can't fucking believe that just happened. And they tied the game up. The game ended up going into overtime, and they ended up winning that game. And then so that forced a Game 7 in the series. And then obviously they won, and the rest is history. They kind of pulled away, after that. And it's like that game kind of broke the spirit of the Spurs, because it's like it was like a lot of those guys, like Chris Bosh, he's like, I don't know how the hell we won that game. But that's where preparation and being diligent and busting your ass and continually every day trying to get a little bit better as an athlete, as a business person, as a career person, as a man, as a human being, trying to get a little bit better each day. That's where that stuff pays off. People don't see the thousands and thousands of 3-point shots that Ray Allen has made over his life. He's also missed them. I mean, the shot could easily not gone in. They would have lost. But because he did it so much, repetition being the mother of skill, it's just like Aristotle said, excellence is not a singular act, but a habit. You are what you do repeatedly. And that's why they won, and that's what it takes. And I've got some examples, like just this past year, there was a football player, he played during preseason for the Atlanta Falcons. He ended up getting cut, but what's interesting, this guy's name was Brian Banks. And he was all over the news a few months ago during preseason, because this guy, about 10 years ago, when he was 17 years old, he had a woman that he went to high school with accused him of raping her, and he got convicted. He spent 5 years in prison, and he obviously didn't rape this girl, but he got convicted. And so when he got out, he was he had to register as a sex offender, and so he wasn't allowed to go within like 2,000 feet of any school. He wasn't allowed to live or be within 2,000 feet of a school. And so you can imagine it's hard to find a job. You can't play football. You can't do anything because of the record that he has. And so he ended up hiring a private investigator. And so this investigator ended up being able to interview this woman that had falsely accused him of rape. And she admitted on camera that she made the whole fucking thing up. Can you imagine doing that to somebody and making that shit up? And so obviously he had the evidence, and they took it back to the judge, and so they acquitted all the charges. They got him off probation, and he won I think it was a $2.6 million judgment against her for obviously falsely accusing and making false statements to the police. And so 10 years after all this happened, obviously he didn't get to play college ball. He had a full scholarship to I think it was USC, the Trojans, the college basketball team. He had a full ride, and all that shit went away when he went off to jail. So it took him 10 years basically to get acquitted, and so the Atlanta Falcons gave him a shot. And he'd been out of football obviously for a lot of years. A lot of guys go to college, and that's where they really hone their skills coming out of high school. But this guy was like, he was one of the, at the time, he was like the most highly recruited athlete that particular year in the whole country. And so he had a lot of natural skills and a lot of natural talent. And he's like, so he spent a decade trying to get to a place where he could actually go and just compete. And so he got a tryout for the team. He didn't make it. He made a couple tackles in one of the preseason games. But it's just a great story because the guy didn't give up. And if I was advising him, the best thing that he can be doing is going to football camps and training like a motherfucker day in and day out, trying to become a better football player, because he's got a lot of catching up to do, because a lot of guys that he's competing against obviously spent 4 years in college and played about 35, 40 games in college, and obviously all those thousands of hours of practice that he lost, that he missed out on. So there's another player that I really like. His name is Cam Wake. He's one of the best defensive ends in the NFL, and he plays for my favorite team, obviously the Miami Dolphins. And what was interesting about him is that he didn't get drafted, and he totally expected to get drafted, and so that really bothered him. And so he ended up getting an invite to, I think it was the New York Giants training camp, and they cut him. And it's like nobody else would give him a chance. And so he ended up going to the CFL, a Canadian Football League. And when he was out of football, he was like working at a gym, selling gym memberships. He was also, I think, working as a mortgage broker. This guy's like, if you've ever seen pictures of him, he's just fucking shredded, man. He looks like a football player. And he's one of the best defensive ends in the league. He had 15 sacks last year, which was like third or fourth best in the NFL. He's been in the Pro Bowl twice. Just got a big like $40 million contract last year. They extended him. And, I remember him tweeting a few years ago when he went to the Pro Bowl for the first time. He says, like, from the couch to the Pro Bowl. I mean, literally, he was just devastated when he didn't make it. So he went and played for 2 years in the Canadian Football League, and, of course, had a great career there and did real well, had all kinds of sacks. And so the Dolphins actually gave him a tryout after he won. I think he won like Defensive Player of the Year in the Canadian Football League. So they gave him a tryout, and he was only like coming in on like third and fourth down, so he was only playing like part of the game. But his second year and his third year, he just totally beasted out. He started making the Pro Bowl, and I mean that was his story. But it's like he didn't give up. He knew that this was what he was put on earth to do, was to become an NFL player. And so it took him several years to just get an opportunity, to get a second chance, if you will. Another guy that's on the Dolphins team that he's got an interesting story. His name's Jimmy Wilson. He's a safety and cornerback, I should say, not quarterback. But what was interesting, this is probably 7-8 years ago. I guess one of his aunts had a really abusive boyfriend, and so she called him. She called Jimmy Wilson, and because of this, this drunk, alcoholic, abusive boyfriend of hers was over at her house threatening her, and so he went over there, and this guy had a rifle, and so they struggled, and then the rifle went off, and it hit. Obviously, when the bullet hit the boyfriend of his aunt, and killed him, and so he ended up getting arrested because I think he took off with a gun or something like that, and I can't remember the story specifically, but he ended up going to prison for like a year or two, and he stayed in prison because he didn't have the money to get out on bail or anything like that. And so obviously when the thing finally went to trial, he got off in as self-defense, but that significantly derailed his career in college, and obviously in his NFL career. When he finally was able to go to college, he did really well. And I think the Dolphins drafted him like the 7th round. Little short guy, he's got a chip on his shoulder. Two other football players, one of them this past year, Russell Wilson. This guy's supposedly too short, not a 6'5" type prototypical quarterback. I can't remember, he's like 6'1" or whatever. He's not what supposedly an NFL quarterback is supposed to be. But last year he came in and he beat out a guy Matt Flynn, who originally came from the Green Bay Packers, who they signed to be their starting quarterback, and so they drafted Russell, and Russell did so well they ended up getting the starting job, and they had a great season last year. And there's another guy, you've probably heard Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, who, same thing, he's not very big, he's not like a prototypical quarterback, but it was interesting, his belief system, his goal, he wants to become the best football player in the world. That is his focus. That's what I saw that in an interview, and I thought that was amazing. That's, he won the Heisman Trophy, I think, last year, and obviously this is his second year now, and he's doing amazing. And the guy runs. If there's nobody open, he just hauls ass and he takes off running. They call him Johnny Football, is his nickname. But that's his focus. He's focused on becoming the best football player in the world, and that's the mindset of a winner. And if you want to become a great quarterback, whether it's with this team or another team, you got to keep trying to get better. It's like you got to sit down with your coach and say, what do I need to do in order to get the starting job? What do I need to improve on? What fundamentals do I need to work on? What do you need to do in the weight room? What do you need to do with your diet? I mean, you've got to be willing to work harder and demand more out of yourself than anybody else. If you want to have a set of standards that are excellent standards, and you want to compete at the highest level, that's what it takes. That's the mindset that it takes in order to get to that place where you can achieve the things that you want to achieve. So if you'd like to get my help personally, overcoming a challenge, or you need help in your relationships, you need to turn your business around, or you're just trying to figure out what your purpose is in life, the quickest way is to book a paid phone coaching session with yours truly. You can do that by going to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions. And I will talk to you soon.